Subscribe to our channel, press the bell icon and never miss an update from Latestly.
There were three broad expectations, I would say. The first was an expectation that this government would acknowledge the problems the nation is facing. Acknowledge the fact that our nation is today facing unprecedented levels of unemployment, which has left countless citizens, especially our young and dynamic working age population, with little prospects for a brighter tomorrow. Admit that 1/5 of India's population has plunged a staggering 53% in the last 5 years in their income, while the wealth of the richest 100 Indians has soared to 57 lakh crore rupees. 4.7 crore Indians have slipped into extreme poverty below the poverty line. Acknowledge the fact that the Indian middle class has been left defenseless in the face of rising inflation, shrinking incomes, and the consequent acceleration of household debt. Recognize the widespread distress and anguish in the agrarian economy, exacerbated by the peremptory manner in which your government passed the three contentious farm laws that drove hundreds of our farmers to camp outside the borders of our city in the bitter winter cold, the harsh summer sun, and the soaking monsoon rain, in a cause for which over 670 of them gave their lives. And concede that all these issues have been avoidable misadventures forged by your style of misgovernance. A style of governance that prioritizes one-man rule over consultation, a style that demands conformity rather than seeking consensus, and a style that has scant regard for the fundamental conventions or institutions that have traditionally guided our democracy. We all heard the Prime Minister today telling us of his government's achievements of but let's ask, sir, what are toilets? What use are toilets without running water? Gas cylinders whose refills you can't afford? Electricity connections whose bills you can't pay because you don't have a job? प्रधानमंत्री का शेर भी हम सुना। उनका जवाब है अली सादर जाफरी के शब्दों में, तुमने फिरदौस के बदल में जहन्नुम देकर कह दिया हमसे गुलिस्तान में बहार आ गई है, बागबान बन के उठे और चमन बेच दिया है. That is what this government has done, sir. So we've been left bitterly disappointed by this government's unwillingness to offer even a token recognition of the problems they've caused, of the widespread anguish they have inflicted upon the Aam Aadmi, the unemployed youth, our Kisans, who are still facing the existential crisis caused by this government. This House has not forgotten the Prime Minister talking about zero-budget natural farming because his government has, I'm sorry to say, left a zero in the budget for farmers. Second expectation, sir, that the people of this nation had was for the government to usher in concrete actions and corrective measures to address the multi-pronged calamities that their own government has caused them. An expectation to address the increasing unemployment crisis and declining labor force participation by developing targeted measures for job creation and strengthening existing employment guarantee schemes like Manrega. An expectation to provide urgent life support for the MSME sector, battered first by demonetization and then by lockdowns. Help them through fiscal support and a less exacting regulatory framework. An expectation from the government to mitigate the crisis of the middle class by reducing income tax or at least raising the exemption slab to at least 5 lakhs, as this government had repeatedly promised earlier. Arresting the untrammeled rise in the prices of basic commodities. An expectation that the government would have the commitment and the vision to design a pathway out of the staggering inequality in our country. And where our Kisans are concerned, an expectation to fix the cracks in our MSP and offer them support in terms of the procurement of basic commodities like fertilizers at a time when the price of raw material is skyrocketing. Sadly, this government's budget has given the nation exactly the opposite. A significant slashing of the Manrega scheme, more tokenism in credit support for the MSME sector, no changes in the personal taxation regime, and no relief in terms of addressing rising inflation, no targeted efforts for job creations, barring the inadequate 60 lakh jobs over 5 years, a far cry from the 2 crore jobs a year they had promised earlier in the equally illusory Achhe Din, the reduction of budgets for social welfare schemes and significant cuts in schemes for crop insurance, MSP and fertilizers, leaving many farmer groups to term this budget as a revenge budget. In the words of Kamna Prasad, कल की खातिर आज को बर्बाद करके रख दिया, हम तुम्हारी दूरंदेशी के कायल हो गए। वाह शशि जी वाह। जो थे पस्ती में उन्हें बस ख्वाब दिखाए गए, जो बुलंदी पर थे उनको और ऊंचा कर दिया। That's what's happened here, sir. Now, while none of these concerns were addressed, the people of this country at least expected from the government to learn from the grim experiences of recent times and prioritize allocations accordingly. Then the budget might offer a vision of economic recovery that would guide our nation out of the darkness and distress of the pandemic and the aftermath. But where have we seen this, sir? This government has not learned from the repeated instances of incursions on our sovereign territory by prioritizing, by expanding the defense budget and providing support for our armed forces to accelerate urgent modernization requirements. The government has not learned from our harrowing ordeals during the height of the pandemic to strengthen our medical infrastructure so as to shore up our preparedness in the event of future contagion. The government has not learned to increase allocations to education so as to prepare our young children better to cope with an uncertain future. The government has not learned to attend to the problems of today's Indian citizens rather than stretching the mirage of Achhe Din 25 years into the future into some illusory Amrit Kal that no one in the government will be around to be accountable for at all.
इस सदी का सबसे बड़ा पाप अगर किसी ने किया हो तो प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने किया था, जब रात को 8 बजे आकर 12 बजे तक का समय दिया, 4 घंटे में एक लॉकडाउन घोषित कर दिया। न सोचा दिहाड़ी मजदूरों के बारे में, न सोचा उन लोगों के बारे में जो रोज कमाने जाते हैं और शाम को आकर अपना अनाज खरीद के खाना बनाते हैं। कुछ सोचे बगैर, उनको कोई सहारा सपोर्ट दिए बगैर आपने लॉकडाउन घोषित कर दिया। और आज आप इनको देखिए कि बिना कोई शर्म नहीं है, आकर बोलते हैं कि कांग्रेस ने मदद क्यों की मजदूरों की। अरे आपकी तरह हम थोड़े ही हैं कि बेसहारा छोड़ दें मजदूरों को। आपने आज हमारी एक तरह से तारीफ की है। हाँ, हमने मदद की मजदूरों की, हमें गर्व है इस बात पर कि हमने मजदूरों की मदद की है। शर्म आपको आनी चाहिए कि आपने मजदूरों को ऐसे सड़क पर छोड़ दिया। गाड़ियां बंद, रेलगाड़ियां बंद, बसें बंद, सब कुछ बंद, उनका व्यापार बंद, उनका नौकरियां बंद। क्या करते वो अगर घर नहीं जाते तो?
माननीय पंतप्रधानांचं हे वक्तव्य अत्यंत दुर्दैवी आहे, त्यांच्या पदाला शोभणारं नाही. कोरोनाचं संकट ज्यावेळेस आलं त्यावेळेस महाराष्ट्रामध्ये लाखो मजूर हा परराज्यातला होता. महाविकास आघाडी म्हणून असेल किंवा काँग्रेस पक्षाचे कार्यकर्ते म्हणून असतील, आम्ही सर्वांनी कुटुंबातल्या सदस्यांप्रमाणे त्यांची काळजी घेतली. त्यांच्या जेवणाची सोय, त्यांच्या नाश्त्याची सोय सगळी घेतली, त्यांच्या आरोग्याची काळजी आम्ही केली. अनेक महिने हे काम आम्ही केलं आणि ज्यावेळेस हा मजूर गावाकडे जायचं, घराकडे जायचं हा आग्रह करू लागला आणि तो बाहेर पडला, त्यावेळेस त्याची पाठवणूकसुद्धा अत्यंत योग्य पद्धतीनं तिकीटं काढून केली. हे खरं आहे, तिकीटं काढून केली, त्याच्याबरोबर जेवणाचा डबा दिला, व्यवस्थित पद्धतीनं पाठवणूक केली. खरं म्हणजे याचं कौतुक माननीय पंतप्रधानांनी केलं असतं, त्याचा आनंद आम्हाला निश्चितपणे झाला असता. परंतु दुर्दैवानं राजकारण कोणत्या थराला जाऊन करावं या बाबतीत मात्र माननीय पंतप्रधान चुकले आहेत असं माझं मत आहे.